أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Today inshallah we'll touch upon some of the themes from chapter 69, Surah Al-Haaqah, the inevitable. The Al-Haaqah is one of the names of the Day of Judgment. This day is the most critical day in man's life. It is the day when all actions are judged and reward or punishment are given with full justice and accuracy. Now, the Day of Judgment was called Al-Haaqah, one of its names, the inevitable reality, for several reasons. All matters return to its true and natural state, and matters are settled. From haqqa, tahiqqu. Another meaning is the Day of Judgment is sure to happen. It is the inevitable truth. محقق الوقوع, it has to happen. And the third is the Day of Judgment is a day when all will be given their full rights. So all the haqq will be given. Everyone's right will be given perfectly. And then the fourth meaning is the enemies of Islam want to defeat the truth. On that day, their defeat will be complete and final, and the truth will prevail. So these are some of the meanings from the name Al-Haaqah. If we look at the verses, the surah begins with أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحاقة ما الحاقة وما أدراك ما الحاقة. The inevitable reality. What is the inevitable reality? And what can make you know what is the inevitable reality? So nobody knows the true nature of this day, Al-Haaqah, except Allah. But when Allah says وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ, means nobody knows, but Allah is going to tell you. Versus وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ, it means nobody knows and Allah is not going to tell you, because that knowledge belongs to Him. In this case, Allah says, I'm going to tell you about this day, about this inevitable reality, and the danger it has in store for the heedless, and the reward for the believers. And if we look at the surah, the verses mention the destruction of previous nations who denied the hereafter and persisted in their evil ways. They denied that Allah will punish them just because they were powerful in this life. They thought that that's going to extend, that Allah favors them somehow, and they're going to have a good end after they die. So their destruction was done in a very painful manner. The story of the people of Prophet Salih alayhi salam, they thought that they carved dwelling inside the mountain, and they thought that that's going to keep them safe. But Allah sent a loud sound transgressing normal limits. It was such a high-pitched sound that it killed them inside their homes, and it did not affect anything else. The people of Prophet Hud alayhi salam were destroyed with a strong cold wind that burned everything it touched. In other verses, it's like a very cold tornado for 7 nights and 8 days. It was, continuously, and their destruction was complete. Pharaoh and the people of Prophet Lut alayhi salam were destroyed with an unimaginable level of destruction fitting their transgression. Their destruction was complete and most severe in this life, but what is waiting for them is much worse. In verse 13, Allah says, فَإِذَا نُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ نَفْخَةً وَاحِدَةً. One blow from the horn, all it takes is one blast, and every living thing will die. And in verse 14, Allah says, and the earth and the mountains are lifted and leveled with one blow. Everything is obliterated. These are from the catastrophic events of the end of time. And in verse 15 Allah says, فَيَوْمَئِذٍ وَقَعَتِ الْوَاقِعَةِ. On that day, the inevitable will occur. And al-Waqi'ah is another name of the Day of Judgment. It is the final day sure to happen. And it is mentioned in the past tense to stress its inevitability. It will happen, as if it's already happened. In the knowledge of Allah and in His plan, it already has happened. So it is that sure. It should be in our mind. And a pivotal verse in the series, in verse 18, Allah says, يَوْمَئِذٍ تُعْرَضُونَ لَا تَخْفَى مِنْكُمْ خَافِيَةٌ. That day you will be exhibited for judgment. Not hidden among you is anything concealed. That means all actions, intentions, and results will be on full display, and nothing can be hidden from divine accounting. And it's the most effective driver for steadfastness is the knowledge that the Creator is fully acquainted with the smallest details of your life. So nothing is hidden from Allah. And on that day, everything will be on display and everyone will be judged accurately and justly. So the people on that day will be in one of two groups. There is no third group. The ones who will receive their book of deeds with their right hand, they are the successful one. And the Arabs used to consider the right of everything, right hand, right direction, as a good omen. So that's why it's mentioned here. فأما من أوتي كتابه بيمينه فيقول هاؤم اقرءوا كتابيه إني ظننت أني ملاق حسابيه, in verses 19 and 20. So as he who has given his record in his right hand, he will say, here, read my record. Indeed, I was certain that I would be meeting my account. فهو في عيشة راضية في جنة عالية قطوفها دانية, verses 21 to 23. So he will be in a pleasant life, in an elevated garden, its fruit to be picked, hanging near. There is no effort. It's comfort in the hereafter for the people who knew they were going to face that day and prepared for it in this life. You want the fruit comes to you. You don't even have to lift your hand, it comes to you. The other group are the ones who ignored this inevitable reality and did not prepare for it. In verse 25, وَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِشِمَالِهِ فَيَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي لَمْ أُوتَ كِتَابِيَهْ. But as for he who is given his record in his left hand, he will say, oh, I wish I had not been given my record. وَلَمْ أَدْرِ مَا حِسَابِيَهْ لَيْتَهَا كَانَتِ الْقَاضِيَةِ مَا أَغْنَى عَنِّي مَالِيَهْ هَلَكَ عَنِّي سُلْطَانِيَهْ, in verses 26 to 29. I wish I had not known what is my account. He did not want to receive this book of deeds because he knows it has horrors in it of what he committed in this life and he has to pay for it. I wish my death has been the decisive one. He's going to wish as if when he died that was the end of it. My wealth has not availed me. Gone from me is my authority. Nothing will help on that day. Not wealth, not children, not position, not knowledge. Nothing will help on that day except obedience to Allah and good deeds. So regret, shock, and horror will be their reality of the people of the left. No wealth or status can help on that day. And in verses 30 to 32, Allah says, خُذُوهُ فَغُلُّوهُ ثُمَّ الْجَحِيمَ صَلُّوهُ ثُمَّ فِي سِلْسِلَةٍ ذَرْعُهَا سَبْعُونَ ذِرَاعًا فَاسْلُكُوهُ. Allah will say, seize him and shackle him, then into hellfire drive him, then into a chain whose length is 70 cubits insert him. Shackled and humiliated, they will be thrown into the hellfire, and the chain will enter through the mouth and come out the other end, or vice versa. And that's a horrifying image. And the reason for this terrifying end is mentioned next in verse 33. Why? Why did he deserve all of that? إِنَّهُ كَانَ لَا يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ الْعَظِيمِ. Indeed, he did not used to believe in Allah, the Most Great. Now, these miserable people either did not believe in the existence of Allah. I mean, that is one interpretation. But another interpretation that's even more scary, that these people believed in Allah as a God, that He created everything, but failed to realize His greatness, that He is Azim, that He is grand, He is great, He is the greatest thing, by obeying Him and following His orders. So we as Muslims are not immune from this verse. If you just believe that yes, God exists and He created everything, but you do not obey Him and you choose to follow whatever you want, you may be covered by this verse. So we have to be very careful that it's not enough to believe in Allah, but you have to believe in His greatness, that He is the greatest thing in existence and in your life. So nothing that you can do, is greater than obeying Him and following His orders, so you can deserve His bounties. So the first mention was he did not believe in Allah the Most Great, and in verse 34 it says, وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ, nor did he encourage the feeding of the poor. So on top of disbelief, this person used to dissuade others from doing act of goodness. And it here is mentioned feeding the poor, not for itself, but as a metaphor for doing good. That means even to feed somebody who is needy, he does not want to do it, and does not encourage others to do it. So the verse is more general than that this person did not have any goodness in his heart for anyone. So he did not believe in Allah and did not want goodness for people around him, or people or even animals and the environment and so on. So such people will have no friends or protectors on this day, and a severe humiliating punishment is theirs. So man will be either in an eternal happiness or eternal misery. There is no third position. It's either heaven or hell. So, there is no gray area. It's one or the other. So pick the path that you want. Who wants to, pick the path of misery? Then the verses start mentioning the virtues of the Quran, that the Quran is the truth from the Lord to remind man of this inevitable meeting with Him. In verse 48, Allah says, وَإِنَّهُ لَتَذْكِرَةٌ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, and indeed the Quran is a reminder for the righteous. Verse 49, وَإِنَّا لَنَعْلَمُ أَنَّ مِنْكُمْ مُكَذِّبِينَ, and indeed we know that among you are deniers. And denial can be with words or with actions. So contradicting the teachings of the Quran is a form of denial. When Allah says do something and you do the opposite, you're denying the Quran. Not observing the lawful and unlawful is a form of denial. So we have to be very careful in that aspect. Verse 50 says, وَإِنَّهُ لَحَسْرَةٌ عَلَى الْكَافِرِينَ, and indeed it will be a cause of regret upon the disbelievers. So the regret of the unbelievers will be magnified because they had access to the Quran. They could read, they could follow in this life Allah's commands and be good and deserve the goodness in the hereafter, and they could have saved themselves, but they ignored it. They ignored it and they fought it, and they tried to extinguish the light of Allah and the truth, and now they're going to have to pay. They have to pay the price. In verses 51 and 52, the ending of the surah, وَإِنَّهُ لَحَقُّ الْيَقِينِ فَسَبِّحْ بِاسْمِ رَبِّكَ الْعَظِيمِ, and indeed it is the truth of certainty. So the Quran is the truth 100% that cannot have any doubt in it. So exalt the name of your Lord, the Most Great. So belief in Allah is a matter of time. You can believe early in this life when it can benefit you, or you can know the truth after death, when it will be a source of regret and loss. So heed the chapter is advising us to heed the warnings in the Quran and exalt the great Lord in belief and in actions to be safe from His punishment. And I will conclude the lesson with the reason the name of the surah was Al-Haaqah is to remind us that the day of judgment and its events are inevitable. They will happen. There is no doubt. There are only two destinations, heaven or hell. And Allah wants us to realize this evident truth and prepare for it before it's too late. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. La ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.